I'm Anna,
And I'm Fran.
and you're listening to Murder Words. Welcome back to Murder Words. So, I know you didn't hear Fran join me on that because she, unfortunately, could not be here today to record. So,
Boo.
I have my husband stepping in to sub for her because I didn't want to record alone and be up here and talk to myself the whole time because that's awkward. So, and he really is not a fan of true crime, so this should be
Should
interesting.
be good.
And he's nervous. So, we've really just thrown him for a loop this time. We appreciate it though. I'm going to be covering a story. It's actually a documentary that I watched, and he was on the couch with me, but he didn't pay any attention, so this is probably going to be new for him. He
I
was
never
probably
do
watching
pay
TikTok.
attention. I
So,
was definitely scrolling through TikTok.
I was trying to explain to him what I was covering. He was like, I don't know what you're saying. So hopefully Fran can be back with us the next time we record. So, I'm just going to jump right in. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Sorry to inconvenience you. Hopefully Fran can be back. Sorry you had to settle.
So, this is a recent case, and I was shocked because I've never heard of it. It happened in 2017, and it did catch national attention. So, I don't know what we were doing during this time, but I did not hear about it at all. This happened July 5th, 2017 in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. It's in an area called Newtown, and there was a 19-year-old named Jimmy Patrick, and he told his grandparents that he was going to go to Chick-fil-A with some of his friends. It started to get late, and Jimmy's grandpa said that if he got home super late, he would come into their bedroom and wake them up and, be like, hey, I'm home. And that night he didn't do that. Jimmy was living with his grandparents because his mom was schizophrenic and was unable to take care of him. So they were basically his parents. They took him home at one day, like the day after he was born. So those were his parents.
So how old was he this time?
19.
Okay.
Yeah. He was very successful. Like, he had applied and been accepted into multiple colleges. He had scholarships to almost all of them. He ended up choosing Loyola University in Maryland. He was said to have wonderful grades and be an excellent writer. He was on the dean's list in college and in the business honors fraternity. So basically everyone was like super proud of him. He was successful. They were like excited to see what he would do in the business world, like once he graduated and went off. The next morning, Jimmy still wasn't there. So his grandparents were like, okay, something is happening. Like, this is not like him. He would let us know. And they decided to start calling his friends to say, like, hey, have you seen him? Have you heard from him? They found out that he had lied and he didn't really go to Chick-fil-A.
Ooh, I'd have been in so much trouble.
Yeah, me too. Around noon, they called the police. The police told them they have to wait 24 hours, so around 4, he still wasn't there. They called again. A patrolman came out to their house. They gave him the description, a picture, his cell phone number, all that, and they actually decided to track his phone number. His last pinged location was about 50 miles from them. Jimmy's grandpa went straight to that location and walked around. It was like this big open field, and he didn't find anything. So they started to put posters up everywhere. 3 days after Jimmy went missing, his grandparents decided to hire a private investigator because they were upset the police weren't doing enough. The investigator started to talk to all of Jimmy's friends, and they were in contact with like local detectives from the police department, like around the county. The private investigator messaged the Middletown Police Department and said, I'm investigating a missing teen, and the police department messaged back and said, we have a missing teen here too. So now we have a missing teen from Middletown and one from Newtown, both in the same county.
I was going to say, I wondered if it was across county lines.
Yeah, no, this is same county, just like the different little towns in it. Dean Finicaro, a 19-year-old boy, is also missing. Dean and Jimmy lived in the same county, but they went to different schools, had different friend groups, so they weren't sure right away if this was connected or just some kind of weird coincidence. Jimmy's phone pinged him outside of the county when he was last seen. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
Officer Megan Freer, who is a champion. I love her. The police work was really good in this case, in my opinion. I feel like we don't hear that very much, but they took this very seriously. When she heard there was a missing boy and heard Dean's name, she already knew who he was because he had run-ins with the law before. Nothing crazy, just teenager shenanigans. They showed videos of him. He was popping wheelies on motorcycles and racing. So run-ins like that.
So is this the officer from the second person
Yes.
missing? Okay.
Dean's parents were worried she was going to take it less serious because he had been in trouble before and they knew who he was, and he was kind of known as a troublemaker. But he had recently gotten a job and he seemed to be really growing and mature. He worked a ton of hours. He loved it there. He was really kind of blossoming into an adult. Officer Freer said that when she showed up, there were so many people at the house, family, friends, that wasn't normal for a missing persons case. So she knew right then something was kind of wrong. She thought at first he was out for the holiday and just not being responsible, but Dean's parents were no, it's been over 24 hours. His phone is off. This is 2017. So no one has their phone off. You know what I mean? Especially teenagers. So she took it seriously. That evening before he went missing, Dean and his dad went out for sushi. Everything was super normal. When they got home, Dean said he was going out and would be back in 15 minutes. Dean's dad asked him who he was going with, and he said a neighborhood kid. When they started searching, they were telling the police names of all of his friends. They were contacting them, asking everyone if they'd heard from him. No one had, and he hadn't been active on social media. So, I feel
that's a red flag.
That's a red flag.
For someone that's 19 years old.
Well, that and just in general, because I feel in our population that we work with, people in recovery, people who use drugs, when they contact me and say, hey, someone, we haven't heard from so-and-so, we think they're missing, the first thing I do is see how long ago they were active.
Yep.
To see, so, and I think everyone does that. So that's huge. There was one friend that was brought up that no one could get a hold of, and his name was Cosmo DiNardo. Dean's friend said that him and Cosmo knew each other from four-wheeling and things like that, and they all said something was kind of off about him. Basically, they were just acquaintances. They weren't hanging out all the time, but people knew who he was. Cosmo was also from Bucks County, and he lived in a town called Bensalem. It's not important to have to remember these town names. I don't know why I'm saying them. Officer Freer called the Bensalem Police Department and asked about Cosmo. They gave her his basic information plus his truck registration number. She learned that Cosmo is from a super prominent family. So she Googled their name and it brought up 2 properties. And I put in my notes, it sounds like you, but that was to Fran because that actually does not sound like you, but it sounds like Fran. She's an investigator. She then thought maybe Dean was out at Cosmo's house just riding on their farms and his phone died or something just for the holiday weekend. She decided to have Dean's phone traced. It was pinged at Cosmo's property. Officer Freer called the police department in that area where the farms were, and she explained the situation. She said she's going to drive out there and see what's going on, and she asked if that officer would go with her. Of course, he agreed. A little bit after 2 a.m., they decided to drive out to the DiNardo farm. They first saw a house that was kind of run down, basically abandoned. Super creepy because it's 2 a.m. and it's dark and it's a big farm. They didn't see any vehicles. They saw a shed, and they were like super spooked out because it was like one of those sheds that's like falling down, like looks haunted. Like you're gonna drive past it and be like, that's haunted type of shed.
Yeah, one of those that you don't go in.
Yeah. But yeah, they expected to find a bunch of teenagers just like hanging out, but they didn't see anyone. It was dark, so they decided to leave. Officer Freer went back to her township, and the other cop went back to his normal patrol. After 15 minutes, the other cop kept getting this weird feeling like, I need to go back and look in that shed. Like, he kept thinking about the shed and kept popping up in his mind. And he decided to go back. He told Officer Freer that he was going back, so like keep her on board. He went back and opened the shed up just a little bit.
By himself?
By himself. And immediately knew something was wrong. There was a vehicle inside, but it wasn't like, it was clean. Like there were no spider webs on it. Like you could tell it was like.
Oh, so it was like a small building. Like if there was,
it was like a
vehicle
shed
inside of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like.
Okay.
Almost a barn is what I imagined.
I was thinking like outhouse-sized shed.
Oh, no. I imagine like a little barn. So the vehicle wasn't dirty at all. So he was like, this has been recently placed here. Like, this is weird. Something's off. There was stuff all in the back seat. He wanted to be sure nothing was back there. Like, he was worried there might be a body or something. There wasn't, but he was still like, like someone's obviously trying to hide this. Like, what is happening? There were also fresh tire marks in the grass to pull it in. He called the license plate number in to check, and the vehicle came back registered to a Thomas Mayo. Immediately when the dispatcher read that name off, another police officer came on the radio and said, "Did you say Thomas Mayo?" And he was like, "Yeah." And she was like, his mother was just in the station earlier reporting him missing. Literally a third missing boy from the same county. They wanted to find Cosmo DiNardo. Obviously, they were like, okay, so like it's all coming back to Cosmo.
Yeah.
So Officer Freer rushes to his house and tries to talk to him, but his mom answered and said that he wasn't there. The cop made it seem like, they wanted to make sure he was okay, so his mom didn't panic. They were like,
he's a suspect. No, I understand.
They haven't been named. He hasn't been named a suspect yet, but they're starting to be like, what's happening? Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't confusing him with the victim.
I know there's a lot of names in this one, but they did act to his mom like concerned. They were like, we just want to make sure he's okay, like make sure he's not also missing, type of thing.
Yeah, because she'll cover for him.
Yeah.
Likely.
So later that day, Officer Freer was notified that Thomas Mayo's best friend, Mark Sturgis, was also missing. 4 boys, all from the same county.
In a matter of pretty much a week?
Couple days, yeah. This was all within a couple of days of each other.
Wow.
Tom and Mark were best friends. They met in 9th grade and have been inseparable since. They went missing on July 7th, the same night that Dean went missing. Mark was said to have been the type of person to always stand up for everyone. He was like a bigger dude. We'll post pictures so you guys can see. But he loved to play guitar. That's how him and Tom met and bonded. According to his mom, Mark was known for not charging his phone. She said he was just like super down to earth, didn't care about social media, like, wasn't worried about that kind of stuff. She last heard from him when he was at work the Friday before. He texted her and said he loved her. And when she didn't hear from him, she just assumed like he was out and his phone had died. She wasn't worried at all. Like, that's normal for him. It wasn't until later that weekend when they didn't show up to work that Tom and Mark's family were like, okay, something is wrong. They worked together and they were like super reliable. Neither of the families had heard from them. Tom was diabetic and he carried insulin with him everywhere. A crime scene unit went to the car that was found in the shed to like further investigate. They were able to do that now because the person was reported missing. They did find the title and the keys for the vehicle in the car, which was like really strange. Like, why are you driving around with that? But there was no sign of struggle The car was just parked in there.
Hmm.
They found Tom's diabetic kit inside of the vehicle.
Oh boy, that's... Yeah.
They formed a task force to investigate, and like all the parents started to investigate on their own. They were using social media to spread the word, like hanging posters up. That's how they found out, because initially they didn't know there were other missing boys. They thought theirs was the only one.
Right.
Mark's mother saw on social media that Dean was missing, and she looked up a phone number and called Dean's dad. He said that it was Dean's dad, he said it was super strange because she was hysterical and they didn't know each other, but he was also hysterical. So they like bonded over that. And they were able to like tell each other the similar stories of how their sons went missing. And I think that's when they started to really realize that this wasn't good. Like it was worse than they thought.
Yeah, because there's like a pattern developing.
Yeah. Immediately after Dean's dad talked to Mark's mom, a private investigator called him. It was the investigator on Jimmy Patrick's case. So it was like immediately he found out other kids were missing.
This is getting big quick.
This is big. Jimmy's grandparents were still a little bit iffy about it. They didn't think Jimmy was involved. I kind of got the impression...
Denial is a strong motivator a lot of times.
Yeah. And I also got the impression that no one said this, but this is the vibe I got, that they thought my grandson would never hang out with kids like that. That was the impression I got. So they were...
Makes sense.
Yeah, they were kind of like... Didn't know if Jimmy was involved with the rest of the missing ones, because... And they didn't recognize any of the other boys' names. Except for one. Cosmo DiNardo.
So now they're being able to start linking the one common connection between them.
Jimmy and Cosmo went to high school together. They were 1 year apart. So all of them are officially linked to Cosmo. Dean's parents found security cameras that were at a neighbor's house, and it showed a silver pickup truck leaving the area at the exact time that Dean disappeared. It was Cosmo's truck. They reached back out to Cosmo because they never heard from him and he wasn't there the first time they went, and they arranged a meeting. Cosmo said he has no idea what happened. He did say that he was with Dean that night that they disappeared.
So they were able to reach Cosmo this time.
Yeah. The first time his mom was just like...
He's not home.
He's not home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure I'm following because there's so many names.
I know, there are so many names.
I don't know how you all do this.
So, yeah, Cosmo said that him and Dean were hanging out that evening. That explains, like, his truck being there. But he said that they got into a fight and he kicked Dean out on the side of the road. And then he just went fishing until 9 p.m.
Some friend.
Yeah. They decided to reach out to the public for help connecting the four boys to each other. Because still at this time, like, they all don't know each other, but they all just know Cosmo. So they were trying to look for other things, and it goes national. The story goes national. Like, everywhere's talking about it.
I was wondering if it's like this, and if I'm getting ahead, I was wondering if the feds get involved on this one.
Well, they don't really need to, because okay.
I'll
I mean, they do
I'm
need to,
jumping
obviously,
ahead.
but yeah.
I'm jumping ahead of something apparently.
Reporters found out that Cosmo was the prime suspect. It hasn't been announced yet, but you know how reporters are, like, they get in there. So they find out that they're looking at Cosmo, and they start pulling everything they can find on him. So, a little bit about Cosmo. Like we talked about before, the DiNardos are a super wealthy family. Everyone knew who they were. Cosmo's dad said, quote, "My son was supposed to be the mayor of this town. He was going places. Everybody loved him." He did great in school. He got a scholarship to college. He wanted to be an orthodontist. He was super involved. He was on the Ben Salem Anti-Drug and Alcohol Task Force. Seems strong name. That's a strong name, I felt like.
Yeah.
Anti-drug and alcohol. He also won an award for excellent volunteer work for rebuilding a church. Cosmo's mom said that she started to notice issues around 2015 when Cosmo and his girlfriend broke up. Quickly after he wasn't able to get into the Navy, Cosmo was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. In 2016, he was in a four-wheeling accident that put him in a wheelchair. Temporarily, not like full-time.
Wow, that was...
But yeah, he was in a wheelchair for a while.
Went downhill quick.
Yeah, had like a huge cast, things like that. And it was around that same time that Cosmo started to act really strange. He stopped eating his mom's food, saying she was trying to poison him. And he started to become like super violent. He was like assaulting his family members on a regular basis. So he was in and out of psych wards, and he was being treated for bipolar disorder, schizoaffective disorder, and schizophrenia. The day before the boys went missing, his psychiatrist, Dr. Kohler, said he was in remission and took him off all of his medication.
Cold turkey?
I don't know if he weaned him or...
That's... Okay, that sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah. He also had... He was basically creepy, like on the internet. He's like... He would make posts saying, "Birthday sex, anyone?" Or, "Who loves intercourse like me?" Stop.
I know a few people have.
Stop it.
Like, post like
can
that.
you imagine? Like, he was also known to harass women on Messenger, but no. Instant block if I saw that. Creepy. That's creepy.
I mean, no doubt, but I still know a few people like that.
There was another incident where someone spotted Cosmo getting into a vehicle with a shotgun and called the police. Police pulled him over and found the gun.
And he's the one that was just taking off all of his meds, right?
Mm-hmm. He was taken off of his medication the day before the boys went missing. So at this point, so it should have been a felony.
Okay, because I was going to say, I didn't think people with that type of diagnosis were allowed to own guns.
Well,
Or so I'm guessing he could have just swiped it.
no, it should have been a felony because if you've been involuntarily committed to a psych ward, you aren't allowed to have guns.
Right.
And that's how it is here too, I think, right?
Yes. Voluntary, you can end up getting them back after a certain amount of years if you voluntarily go.
Yeah. Well, the charges were dismissed due to faulty paperwork. So...
He fell through the cracks, essentially.
Well, I think the impression a lot of people have is his family is prominent. So, because Dean's dad...
faulty paperwork.
Yeah. So Dean's dad on the documentary, he was like, if that was my son, like, he would still be in jail over that because he was pulled out. He said the police here did not give my son a break. He was like, and that's fine, but why would they not give him a break but give someone like Cosmo a break? It has to be because of his family, is what he's saying.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, Cosmo's weird dude. Back to the investigation. Police decide to look at the automatic license plate reader. You know those things where they like scan the license plate real fast?
Oh, like when you see them on the trunks of the police cars?
Oh, I've never seen one, but I heard about it when I was like out using. Like if I had a warrant, I'd be scared because I would always hear that the police can just real quick like scan all of the license plate.
Have you ever seen one of those police cars around here that has all the cameras mounted on the trunks? That's what that is.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure they have them like at toll booths and stuff too.
Yeah. I knew that. I just, but they store all of that information for like a certain amount of time so you can go back and look through it and like search for stuff. They were trying to see if they could track Cosmo's movements the night Mark, Tom, and Dean went missing. They registered Cosmo's truck in the area that Tom and Mark went missing. So he's caught in a lie now because he said he was out fishing that evening, which was not in that same area. It's really put a wrench in his alibi. They quickly learned that Cosmo was recently trying to sell a vehicle. Ooh. Strangely enough,
was it the one in the barn?
It matched the description of Tom Mayo's car, and that was after Tom was reported missing.
That explains the title being in it.
That is exactly what I wrote.
Oh.
That explains the title. Yeah.
Well, I would come to that conclusion. I'm a car guy, so like,
Yeah.
it's hard to sell a car without a title unless it's a scrapyard.
Yeah, so he's not doing well
Ask me
with.
how I know.
He's not doing well with his lies right now. So, the district attorney decides to make a boss move. Cosmo had that old gun charge that was dropped.
So the DA's on it now.
Yep, the district attorney refiled it and arrested him on that gun charge. Didn't even know that was a thing, but he did it. They set the bail for $1 million.
Shoo.
They were able, at this point, to get a search warrant for the DiNardo farm. Like I said, like humongous property, so they had different search parties for like different areas because it was so big.
Did the grid searching and stuff.
Yeah.
Like you see on the Criminal Minds.
Yeah. One of the groups find an old barn, and when they went in, there was blood everywhere. This was terrifying. Obviously, they were really starting to think at this point, like, okay, we might not find them alive. Like, this looks pretty bad. During all of this...
Did they test the blood?
I don't know if they had time because this is all happening very quickly, but I'm sure they did probably send it off to see if it was an animal or something like that, but we ended up finding out fast.
I'm getting ahead again.
You're getting ahead, yeah.
Sorry, it's just like I'm into it.
I know. During all of this, one of the investigators realized that the last ping on Jimmy's phone was wrong. Because remember, it pinged out of the county.
Right.
So they explained that sometimes, like, the cell phone towers can, I don't know, get mixed up somehow. And his last ping was actually at Cosmo's farm. So they had to break that news to the grandparents.
Oh, that's going to be interesting if...
Yeah. I think this is when Jimmy's grandparents...
That's a lot of time lost.
Yeah. And I think that's when they really start to set in, like maybe he is
tied in with it somehow.
Yeah. Then, devastating news. Cosmo's dad bailed him out of jail.
On the $1 million bail?
Like, why? Why would you?
I mean, even if it's one of the states where you can do like the 10%, that's still $100,000.
It was 10%, but still. You have people searching your property for missing bodies, and they think your son is the suspect. Why would you bail him out? I'm just confused. I mean, I guess you have to be in that situation, but...
Yeah, it'd be hard to speculate until we're on that side of the table.
Yeah. The search is going on for days. The heat was like excruciating during this time. All of the families were there on the property. They weren't allowed to go and do anything, but they were there the whole time for the 4 families. Finally, one of the teams noticed a strange pile of rocks. It looked like there had been some recent movement there, so they decided to dig. They immediately started to notice there were plants under the dirt, like it had been
recently piled up.
Yeah, because that's not possible. Around 6 feet down, they start to smell gasoline.
Oh boy.
At this point, they rearrest Cosmo. They were able to bring him in for stealing Tom Mayo's car. This time, they set the bail at $5 million, trying to prevent
another bailout.
Yeah. While digging, literally for hours, they hit metal. They found like this old oil tank. They called it the pig roaster. I don't understand what that means at all, but
it's probably one of those 55-gallon drums that somebody's turning into a pig roasting thing or something.
Okay.
Probably.
They got a camera to stick down into the oil tank to see what was inside. Immediately, they see a cigarette pack and a boot.
Oh boy.
They get that out and they decide to keep digging, and they saw a piece of blue tarp that was sticking out of the ground. 12 feet down. 12.
Did this person have equipment to do this?
In the blue tarp, there were 3 bodies. They were identified as Tommy Mayo, Mark Sturgis, and Dean Finicaro. It was obvious that this was an extremely brutal death.
Yeah.
At this point, Jimmy's grandparents were like, okay, he's not in there. So he's not involved. Like, maybe he's still alive. Like, the grandma was on the documentary.
But he's the suspect, right?
No, Cosmo. Cosmo
Okay.
is the suspect. Jimmy is the one the grandparents didn't think was involved.
So the gasoline, I wonder if that was to help cover up scent.
So they think maybe he's being held somewhere and he's alive. He's being tortured. Like, the grandparents are starting to think they were right and thinking he's not included in this group of missing boys.
Okay.
Cosmo sees this as an opportunity. He comes to them with a deal himself. He's like, I will strike a deal.
Because he knows it's not looking good for him.
He's like, I will tell you where Jimmy's body is if I can be promised not to receive the death penalty. So he's thinking he's in charge. He
Thinks he's controlling the situation.
Yeah, he knows. Like,
sometimes
okay,
that works.
These boys were, yeah, they said yes.
I just don't.
They want to find Jimmy, so they said yes.
This is just me, but I've never grasped the concept of if I'm in jail.
Why would you not want the death penalty?
Yeah.
Yes, Fran and I have talked about that too. Just put me out of my misery.
Yeah. Line me up for a firing squad or something.
Yeah, because I'm not trying to. But yeah, he came straight to him. He then starts to talk, and he tells him everything. He's one of those people who...
He's bragging.
He explains that it all began with Jimmy Patrick. He said he was the middleman for a drug deal. Cosmo, he's talking about himself. He said Jimmy wanted to buy marijuana. He went and picked Jimmy up. He said he wasn't making any money off of this deal, which is so stupid. Why would you even do it? That doesn't even make sense already to me. Why would you be a middleman if you weren't getting anything?
All right.
Stupid.
Cut me in or cut it out.
Yeah. Apparently, Jimmy was supposed to have $8,000 to buy pot.
Wow.
Bitch, stop. No. According to Cosmo, when he asked to see the money, he said Jimmy only pulled out $800. And Cosmo was like, yeah, you don't have enough money, but I can sell you this gun. I don't know, dude. This whole story that he's talking about does not make sense.
Even 800 is still a ton.
Well, I guess it wasn't enough for the amount he was asking for or what they had planned to get. He said, I'll bring $8,000 to get whatever amount of marijuana. And when he got there, he only had 800. Which I don't know. It's probably not even real. He says they got out of his truck. He handed Jimmy a shotgun, the one that he was saying he was going to sell him. And right when Jimmy goes to shoot it, Cosmo shot him. He says he then went and got a backhoe, dug a hole, said a prayer, and put Jimmy in the hole.
12 feet deep.
This wasn't the 12 feet deep one.
Oh.
This was the one where they're trying to find out where he is.
Okay.
Then he said he set the money on fire. Stupid.
Yeah.
He then just continues to talk. Like he was just going to tell him where Jimmy's body was, but he lets it all out. Cosmo says his cousin, Sean Kratz, was hanging out with him. Sean was never known to be violent. He had a few run-ins with the cops, but it wasn't like anything like this. You know what I mean? Cosmo said him and Sean came up with a plan to rob and kill Dean. Dean wanted to buy some pot. This was after he killed Jimmy. Cosmo said that Sean was supposed to take Dean into the woods, rob him, and kill him. But he couldn't. He was too scared. So he brought Dean back to the barn where they found all that blood. They were acting like they were looking at like a scooter. Like one of those Vespa scooters. I guess they were trying to, I don't know, act like they were selling it or something. And when Dean turned around to walk out, Sean shot him and Dean hit the ground. Then Cosmo said he took the gun from Sean and shot him a couple more times.
The same guy?
Same guy. So the investigator was like, why were you
Overkill.
shooting? Like, what is happening? You know, and he said, he tries to make himself sound better. He said Dean was already dead. He was just shooting him to finish the job. He said, quote, his head was split wide open. Half of his brain was in the barn. You probably found it.
Ugh.
That same night, Cosmo decided to meet up with Tom and Mark. They met out at a shopping center, and then they followed Cosmo back to his farm. When they got out of the car, the second they turned their back, Cosmo shot Tom in his back, and he fell. And he said Mark was like, "What the?" And then he shot Mark. I'll have to try to put a clip in here of Cosmo explaining this because it's so
So
braggy.
you've got a recording of this?
Yeah, I'm sure we can
Of his
find it.
confession?
I mean, I watched it, yeah. Yeah, and he's like bragging. Like thinking it's cool that he did all this.
So I go to meet up with Dean,
Why are you going to meet up with Dean?
a drug deal.
This was pre-planned?
Yeah,
What's he to buy off you?
£1/4 of weed. I don't have a £1/4. I have
Right.
2 ounces. So we picked Dean up. Now this was a robbery. Sean was gonna, rob him in the woods by himself on a quad and kill him. He didn't. So we come back into the barn, we're looking at a Vespa I had, and when we stopped looking at that, Dean turns around to go walk out. When I went to turn, I just hear a bunch of shots go off. Dean goes down, face down, dead.
Okay.
I took the gun from Sean and I shoot Dean, I think once or twice. I don't know how many times I shot him.
Why was he not dead?
No, he was dead.
Okay.
But I just to finish, I just shot him. I'm not lying. He was dead.
Okay.
His head was split the hell open. His brain, you probably found it. Half his brain was in the barn. They could sense something's not right. So when they turn their backs on me,
Mm-hmm.
I shoot Tom in the back, drop him. Mark's like, "What the?" He was such a big kid. I unloaded the gun on him. So he's paralyzed. He goes, "I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs." I went and grabbed the machine because he's screaming now. I mean, I'm surprised the neighbors didn't hear.
Why aren't you shooting him again?
I'm out of bullets. He's screaming, going crazy. Sean's like, got his head in his hands. I grab the backhoe. He sees that coming, just shuts the fuck up, and I just run him over.
Tom was still laying on the ground screaming. He was screaming that he couldn't feel his legs. He was paralyzed.
Ooh.
Cosmo realized that he was out of bullets. So he ran over to the backhoe and ran him over
Oh, I
to
had a
kill
feeling You
him.
were going to say that.
Yeah. Cosmo and Sean then placed the bodies into the oil tank and set it on fire. They then went to a restaurant to go out to eat.
I mean, what else was there to do at that point? I mean, they probably worked up an appetite, right? Ugh.
They go out and try to find Sean because he was still out. This was the first time they were hearing about Cosmo's cousin Sean, so they went out to find him. He did tell them where to find Jimmy, and he was actually there, so they found Jimmy's body. When they found Sean, they asked him his version. He denies shooting anyone. He says Cosmo did all of it and he was forced because Cosmo's crazy, which a lot of people do believe. Like, they think
I mean, I would at least
he was
consider that
using
possibility.
Sean. Yeah. He sticks to that story for 9 months, and finally he does come clean and say, yes, he shot Dean, but again, it was because Cosmo forced him to.
Okay, it's like under duress type of deal.
Yeah. The worst part about all of this right now is because there's no reason. No one, still to this day, no one can find a motive. He's never said this is why I did it, or I was mad at them, or because the money he got, it wasn't robbery. He burnt the money. So why? No one
Clearly
has
just
answers.
enjoys killing people.
Yeah, no one has answers. Cosmo pled guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder 9 days after his first kill. That's why, the blood and stuff hadn't been... The results wouldn't even be back yet
Right.
by the time
So,
he confessed.
From start to finish, 9 days.
9 days. So, and like I said, it was really good police work in this. I feel like usually they'd be like, oh, they're teenagers, they're out partying.
Especially when,
see you later.
The majority of them are adults.
Yeah. He is also charged with robbery and abuse of a corpse. He is sentenced to 4 life sentences. Sean decides to take his case to trial, which ultimately was a terrible choice because
usually, I've never seen one of those go very well.
yeah. He was also found guilty of first-degree murder for Dean and manslaughter for Tom and Mark. He got life without parole. In January of 2020, Cosmo was moved from a medium security prison to one of the highest security prisons in the country. I looked literally everywhere to find out why, and all of them said, like, DOC can't release the reason. So, I don't know why he was moved, but now he's in a high security prison. So, I mean, I've read a ton of different theories about whose fault it was, pretty much. Like, people throwing around ideas. Of course, it was Cosmo's fault, but who could have stepped in and prevented this? Like, was it the psychiatrist's fault for not noticing the signs, taking him off his, saying he was in remission? I'm not a doctor,
towards, but like,
but I didn't know like schizophrenia could go into remission without medicine.
Yeah,
but I'm not sciencey. I'm not a doctor. I don't know.
I know. I'm thinking the same thing though. Like, let's take away what's got him in a remission. Like, it's going to come back.
Yeah. Was it his parents' fault for letting him have access to guns and basically enabling him through all of this?
Dude.
Either way,
It's a mess.
he's a giant pile of human feces.
In a maximum security prison.
Yeah.
For unknown reasons. I'm really curious about that. Like, does he have some kind of like super inside information they're wanting?
I seriously,
He's like trading it?
I looked everywhere and it said Department of Corrections cannot release the reason as to why he was moved.
Or did he almost escape, I wonder?
That's exactly my first thought.
I'm thinking like, this was too close to an escape.
Yeah. So, and this happened in 2017. So, and
yeah, I don't remember seeing much about it, but I mean, and for you, you were working 80 some hours a week at that point.
That's true. Yeah, so Fran would have been shocked at that one too.
Yeah,
so when she listens to Fran, when you listen to this, be surprised.
How could you not?
Yeah.
That's just a train wreck, but in 9 days, wow.
9 days, and I do think Officer Freer, the woman, because I feel like if she didn't really push it like she did, it wouldn't have ended up this way.
I mean, he was like spree killing. You know what that
Yeah.
is classified as spree killing? See,
Yeah.
I do learn some things from listening to you all.
Yeah, we talk about you a lot too, so it's nice for everyone to meet you in person. We always say you have our coffee ready for us and you do all of our edits, even though you don't want to. So, you guys can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and now Twitter. Someone told me I should get Twitter, so I'm trying it. I'm not good at it yet. And you can listen to us on almost all the platforms, and murderwords.com. So we will talk to you soon.
See ya.
Bye.